Welcome back. Now what we're going to take a look at is the cross stick. I'm sure you've heard many songs where you identify this sound. We call it either a cross stick or a side stick. So there is a little technical background to get this to sound really good. Again, as I've said previously, tone is everything. So how do we get that? Well, the one thing that I would recommend is that as you're holding the stick, you're going to hold it as you would be holding it with your thumb and index finger and kind of cup your hand. Put the heel of your palm on the head of the drum. I like to use the tip of the stick as like a little hinge. So as I lift up from my hinge in my wrist, keeping my heel of my palm somewhat connected to the drum head, I'm going to produce that sound. Now remember, there are multiple sounds that you could produce using this cross stick. If I come back a little bit and use a little bit less of the butt end of the stick up top here, that changes the tone dramatically. Look, if I go a little bit further in, that gets a deeper tone. So it is incumbent upon you to figure out what sounds really good. Now, there are also going to be contingencies on the size of the stick that you use as well. I'm using 5A, so that's my most, what I would say, enjoyable tone out of the cross stick. And so, what I would do, before you do any right-hand stuff, is just get comfortable with the heel of the palm, lifting up, keeping the stick tip on the head, and just coming down, making a nice, clean sound. So we can just set a simple click track where we play to 80 BPM, playing quarter notes, just to get that sound and to identify a little bit of that movement so you get a little bit more comfort zone for the cross stick pattern. So let's set that at 80 BPM and let's do these quarter notes. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And. So now if that's a little bit too fast, you could slow it down. We could do it at 60. Let's just do an example of 60 just to give you a little guidelines of that as well. And we'll subdivide the 60 into eighth notes so that we can hear the eighth note subdivision so it doesn't feel stressful to you to get to those quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, and one more measure, and. So now we've identified a little bit of our move. Let's put it into context of a simple rock pattern. So we're going to play just simple eighth notes on the ride cymbal so that you have good clearance with your left hand. Just a 1 and 3 on the bass drum. And we'll play that cross stick on 2 and 4. Now again, as you go through this process of developing your sound, there's nothing wrong with getting that deeper tone or that thinner tone. It's all, again, a musical choice. If you feel that that's a really good sound and you like it, great. But remember, I will say this, don't make it only contingent upon a reflex. Try to be very, very focused and aware of what tonal quality you're producing. As you're playing, you might lose out, and your hand might slip back, and all of a sudden you're getting this sound, or your hand may slip forward and get that deeper sound. So wherever you start, try to keep the tonal quality consistent. Here we go. Let's do a rock pattern at 60 BPM. And we'll just play nice and slow open eighth notes with, again, a 1 and 3 on the bass drum and a nice 2 and 4 on the cross stick. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. Oftentimes, you're going to think about, well, where would you use that cross stick? Well, the cross stick in terms of context could be where you're playing in a ballad, which would be a lighter way of playing your 2 and 4. You could also use it on a build-up from a verse to a chorus. It could also be used on some kind of a bridge or perhaps augmenting a solo. It really depends on the context of what kind of dynamics you're working with. But all these tools are just to remind you that at the end of the day, as you're developing your drum style, your technique, and all the things that you want to kind of acquiesce towards, it's all about building up good, solid musicianship. So this, again, is just one of those tools in the belt to maintain that you really have some semblance of order and that at least you have an understanding of a technical starting point, most importantly. So now let's take a look at a pattern where we play the quarter note as the cross stick, and I'm going to play eighth notes on the hi-hat. I'm going to play it slow. I'm going to put it at 80 BPM. But in the 80s, I got to say, or the late 70s, this quarter note cross stick pattern was really the template for a lot of great fusion-y kind of musics that I was listening to at the time. And I could tell you on some of the recordings I did with my brother, that was a used quality. So again, we just want to develop it nice and slow to see if you can hang on a quarter note. We'll put the eighth notes on the hi-hat. Here we go, 80 BPM, and we're going to subdivide the quarter note pulse to eighth notes. 1, 2, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... So again, where do you use the quarter note? You will fine-tune that as you go through your musical journey. But that is a great viable way, again, of building up some contrast to what you're doing in either verses, choruses, bridges, or a multitude of different things. Let's look at lesson 4 now. We're going to take the same idea, and now instead of playing eighth notes, let's try it with 16th notes. So I'm going to play a simple 16th note pattern. I'm going to play my 2 and 4 on the cross stick. 60 BPM, we'll subdivide those to eighth notes so that we can hear an easy 16th note above the eighth notes. 1, 2, 3 E and 4 E and Again, the usage of that will always be somewhat of a choice when you're going through different landscapes of music. So follow your lead with a little creativity. Of course, there's plenty of stuff to do in terms of listening to different kinds of music that will give you the template of which you want to follow. Now to the assignments. Well, there's nothing here that you're not going to do. I say just take your time and really work on your tonal quality. And don't just relegate yourself to that one tone. Try to feel where that might be usable, that deeper tone or that lighter tone, as I call it, that perfect tone. You get that. That stick should be probably about a quarter of the way, or not quite, but not a third, but somewhere at that top of the stick. Now on my Vic Firths, I would say it's standing somewhere around the 5A logo. But you'll experiment. You will try, because different sticks are going to represent different densities, and so you got to really work that one out. So as you go through this lesson, just go through that first lesson nice and methodical with the quarter note pulse and just no hand, just your left hand, getting that good tonal quality. Lesson 2, go through that nice eighth note pattern where you get your 2 and 4. Lesson 3, you're going to go through that quarter note pattern again and see how that works as you play that with eighth notes. And then finally, the 16th note pattern, which is probably the bigger ballad style of what you'll want to work on. You'll find that in a multitude of songs. So carry on with your lessons, really work on your tonal quality. Don't forget to use that solid cross stick from time to time in your musical endeavors.